it's Rob and welcome to Axel's Garage. Today we're out in the cold and we got an empty driveway. And that driveway is empty today because we got a friend coming over with a 2001 Jeep TJ that has some issues. It's a new purchase for him and it's his first older vehicle. And a lot of the young guys aren't that familiar with getting their hands dirty and wrenching on a vehicle. So we're going to teach him what to do and we're going to try to get his vehicle fixed. What he has is a check engine light on, got some trouble codes. We're going to pull those codes. We're going to find out what the deal is. We're going to Google it up maybe. And then we're going to get his Jeep fixed, get that check engine light out so that he can get it inspected. Alright, so the first step is to pull the codes. You listen? It applies to you too.
Yeah, I'm listening.
And we got a P1391. It's going to say interim loss of CMP or CKP. Okay, so we pulled the codes out, and what does it all mean? Well, it means that it's a crank position sensor or a cam position sensor. So what happens in a lot of these Jeep TJs is that the easiest thing to do is going to be the crank position sensor. It's less expensive and it's easier to get at. And that's what people replace. Now the story with this one, when he bought it only a few weeks ago, was that they changed the crank position sensor. We believe the story that they did change it. We got another one because for 40 bucks it's cheap insurance, and we'll save the old one just in case we determine that it was a good one. We'll save it so that if in the future we need one, we have one. But just to make sure we're starting fresh, we're going to change that crank position sensor anyway. Our experience with the TJs and going on the forums and seeing what other people's experience are is that it's the other one, it's the cam position sensor. And as you know, ignition timing is key to a vehicle running good and an engine running good. It's got gas, the right ratio of fuel, it's got the right ratio of air, but if it doesn't have that ignition timing, it's going to run like shit. The problem is a cam position sensor. Go on Rock Auto and go to their application and look up for a cam position sensor. It doesn't exist. Go to AutoZone or Advanced Auto or Pep Boys or whoever, O'Reilly's, walk in and ask them for a cam position sensor for a Jeep TJ, and they're going to go, it doesn't say it in the book, because the cam position sensor is inside the distributor. And it's a $40 part or so, $45 part. It's actually a pickup coil, which is the cam position sensor. That's usually what goes bad in this situation. We've already had it on one of our TJs that you've seen in our TJ playlist, and I'll put it up here, like that, put it up here. And we've already had that happen to us. The problem is, for $40 or $45, you're going to buy a pickup coil, which is your cam position sensor, and you're going to put that in your old distributor. But for like $60, $65, you get a whole new distributor. And that's what we did. So not only do you get a whole new distributor, but if you buy a decent brand, you get a nice brand new cap and a rotor inside, brass contacts. It's a home run, because by the time you go through everything, like I said, ignition timing is key. If your ignition timing's not on, doesn't know where that cam is in relation to where the pistons are, and it's not firing right, and your car runs like crap. So what we're going to do to alleviate this problem is we're going to put in a new crank position sensor, so we're starting fresh. We're going to drop a new distributor in, not real hard, just a little trick to know with these Jeeps, both the 4-cylinder and the 6-cylinder Jeeps. Same thing on the Wranglers and the Cherokees, pretty much the same. There is one little trick, and drop that in and reset his codes, and he should be good to go with this code that's popping, and he can go get it inspected. Alright, well, you're going to go in and get the distributor out. The first thing you need to know is your firing order, so you can take all your wires off your cap. On this Jeep, it's going to be 1, 2, 4, 3, and the number 1 is marked on your cap. Then you're going to go in, you're going to loosen up your cap, you're going to take your cap off. 2, then we're going to take our hold down out. Alright, when you take the hold down out, it's a 13 millimeter or a 1/2 inch. You can use either one. You're going to pull that hold down out. In a situation like this one where there's an AC compressor, it's going to be a lot easier to use a distributor wrench to get up underneath there. If you didn't have AC, you can get in there with a regular opening and combination wrench. There's plenty of room to get your hand in there. So once you get that out, you just pull the distributor straight out. The rotor will turn when you're pulling it out. But as you can see, Comes out in one shot like that. Right here, this piece right here is your pickup coil, and it's also, according to Jeep, it's your cam position sensor. And this is the part that's actually going to be the bad part. So now, you can go out and you can buy just this part. The problem is, just this part costs almost as much as the entire distributor. And like I said, with a new distributor, you get a good brass contact rotor and a brass contact cap, which this vehicle didn't have in it anyway. Alright, so now, we got the new distributor. Comes with a plastic pin in it on the inside. This plastic pin stops the rotor from moving. Leave that in, don't take it out. That's setting your alignment up. Put a little Molly lube on your gear. Got your gasket in place. I put a little lube on the gasket just to stick it to the bottom of the housing so it doesn't fall off when it goes in. What you're going to do is you're going to slide the distributor in with your mounting tab right here facing up. So you got your motor at top dead center. You're going to slide your distributor in. And as you slide it in, the distributor will rotate to the right and should drop right in with your mounting hole lined up with the bolt to mount it. If for some reason it doesn't, that means that your distributor drive and your oil pump is a little off. So you're just going to take a big flat blade screwdriver, you're going to stick it in, you're going to turn it a little bit, and then you're going to reinstall. You should be installing at about 12 o'clock or so and turning it as it goes in, and it'll seat all the way in. Got that?
Yeah.
Put that straight up and down, turn, and
That just
not dropping all the way in, which means we got to
turn it with the big screwdriver.
Yep. Bearing in there, and we're just going to give it a little bit of a turn. And the same thing, you're going to go in just about 12 o'clock or so. And as it goes in,
It's going to twist into those grooves.
it's going to twist, boom, and now it just slid in all the way to the bottom. Alright, so now, because we're at top dead center, the rotor should be pointing at number 1.
Right.
Alright, so now your rotor's pointing at number 1 on the distributor cap.
You remember those numbers?
No, we don't need them yet. Right, it's all the way in, and all we had to do was turn it a little bit. So if you're following along, we're talking to our new car guy over here and just explaining to him a little bit more what we did. We slid it in the first time, and it was up about 1/4 of an inch off the base. So all we did was just give a turn of the oil pump, the distributor drive and the oil pump. We just turned it a hair, slid it again, and this time it went all the way in, so it meshed all the way in. So we know we got our engine at top dead center. We know we got our rotor pointing to the number 1 cylinder, which is where it should be firing at top dead center. And now we get to put everything back together. Okay, once you get your distributor tightened all the way down, you're going to pull that pin out, that plastic pin. You're going to pull it out from the bottom, get it all the way out, and then you're going to put your pickup coil back on. You got to have your rotor off for that, but you're going to put your pickup coil back on. Okay, your rotor itself only goes in one direction. It's keyed on the bottom. You're going to slide that on. All you just got to do is just slide it on, make sure it's snug. Alright, same thing with your cap. Cap doesn't require any dielectric grease or anything. You're going to put it right in, make sure your vent is in place. Your number 1's pointing towards your number 1. It doesn't get overly tight either. Just give it a little, give it a little thing, but you're not cranking down on it. It's just a little screw. Alright, so now we remembered that we got 1, 2, 4, 3. You wrote it down on your phone.
Just on the ground. Sure
so that was our firing order.
1, 2, 4, 3.
1, 2, 4, 3. 1, 2, 4, 3. It goes clockwise. Number 1 is marked. So you got your number 1 right here. Loop it around so the wires aren't touching anything hot. They're out of the way. You put your 1 in. You got your number 2 is your next one in line. Same thing. Loop that around so it's not touching anything hot where it's going to get burnt. Alright, then you got your number 4. You grab your 4th one. It's number 4. And then you got number 3 in the end. And you're going to loop number 3 around so it's not. And then in the middle, of course, you got your coil wire. Same thing. Make sure when you're snaking those wires, you don't route them where they're touching something hot where they're going to burn. The last connection you have is going to be that wire from your pickup coil or your cam sensor. Right, you're going to find the harness. You're going to plug it in, make sure it's plugged in all the way. And the same thing, make sure that wire is not up against something hot. If you got to take a cable tie or something and put a cable tie on it to hold it out of the way of any heat source, probably a good idea to do that. I like to take it on these particular Jeeps. I like to cable tie it to the engine oil dipstick base. Keeps it out of the way, keeps it from banging around. Alright, so once everything is all buttoned up and ready to go, the next step is just to clear the codes so that you're starting fresh and you start it up and run it and see how it sounds. Go ahead, start it up, kid. The distributor is in. It worked out okay. That's your cam position sensor. It's also called the pickup coil and distributor. Why they call it a cam position sensor is because it tells the engine where the cam is in its rotation, and the computer takes that information and the computer tells the engine to fire a spark plug, and it fires a spark plug, and so on and so forth. So it knows where the cam is, so it knows when to fire, it knows when to advance the timing and retard the timing. And that's all done through the distributor. So now Gordo here just asked me why we need the crank position sensor. Now the crank position sensor in this vehicle, the guy that we bought it from, what did he say? He said it was just changed.
Yeah, he claimed it was changed.
So what does it do? Was his next question. All right, and my really dumbed down layman's way of explaining what it does is that the back of the engine, where the engine and the transmission meet, there's a flywheel. The flywheel is this big wheel that turns with every rotation of the engine. It's got teeth on the outside, and the starter grabs that flywheel to start the engine. That's what it turns, and then the gear pulls back in, the engine starts up. But that thing keeps turning, and it's bolted to the crankshaft, which is where all the pistons come off of, right, on the bottom part of the engine. So every time it turns, there's a magnet on that flywheel, and every time that magnet goes around, it passes this sensor, which is bolted up right in the bell housing of the transmission, and as the magnet passes by, this sensor picks up that magnet. So it keeps going around, and every time it picks up that the magnet passed, it sends a signal to the computer saying, hey, it just passed, hey, it just passed, hey, it just passed. So when it gets to here and it says, hey, it just passed, the computer knows where it is, and it kind of locates it so that it could sync the signal from here to the signal from the cam sensor and tell the ignition system and the fuel system when to give it fuel, when to give it spark, and when that combustion is supposed to happen. So this, working together with the cam sensor, makes your engine run, for the most part, right? So we think the other one was replaced. We were told it was replaced. Cheap enough for $40 to start fresh, especially on a vehicle that is new to him, and it's going to need some basic baseline maintenance, like oil change, antifreeze. You heard when we started it up right after the distributor that we had a power steering. The belt was squealing because of the power steering pump. I don't see any leaks, but there was like no power steering fluid in it. So we put power steering fluid in it, and we're going to have to do little things, one thing at a time. And he's new to having an old car. Did you ever have an old car before?
Not this old.
Not this old, yeah.
2007.
2007's not old. So, gee, if 2007's old, then my model year is real old. Anyway, he's going to learn little by little on how to maintain something old, because having something old isn't always easy, but it's a lot of fun.
Right.
So we're going to crawl underneath. We'll see if we can get a shot of what this looks like and where it goes underneath, and we'll get this in too. Make sure his codes are reset, and we'll go for a ride. All right, right up here is your old, new-looking crank position sensor. So he probably did replace it, but we're going to replace it anyway. Those are 11mm bolts on it. Take those two bolts out, and the sensor comes right out, slides right out. Okay, from the top of the engine, find where your old one is tied up, and it's right here. You separate your connector, and you connect your new one right in place. Okay, a little bit of a pain in the neck to get at, but you can fish around into the back. It was a cable tie holding the old one up. We got the new one plugged in. I'm going to use a cable tie to hold that new one up out of the way of anything hot. And we're good. Mission accomplished. Okay. Yep. Okay, the crank position sensor is in. Codes are reset. We topped it off with a little power steering fluid because he was squealing and the belt was a little loose too, so we tightened that up for good measure. But at least we got those two codes addressed. Hopefully we'll take it for a ride, or he'll drive it for the next couple days, and all the monitors will come in and everything will come in with no check engine light on, and we'll be able to take it and get it inspected. Hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, please give us a thumbs up. If you like what we're doing here at Axle's Garage, please subscribe to our channel. That's it for today. We'll see you next time.